Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Coach Fury here. We're back today with yet another video cast. Just sort of got off the back of one talking about some of the draft stuff with Dennis. I'm back here today to talk about some league-wide questions and some things that we've been sort of debating on the Facebook chat of that. To do that, obviously, I'm joined by one of our regular guests, Miles from the Denver Nuggets. Miles, how's everything going?
It's going good. Can't complain, except we can't win a game. But other than that, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, you're not doing too bad. I mean, we're looking at the ratings. I mean, 8 and 19. Yeah, I mean, probably not a playoff contender this year, but probably we're never going to be. But do you think there's some signs of development in Denver, or is it a bit of a whitewash season for you guys?
No, I like there's a number of things that I like so far about our team. I like that I got Willie Cauley Stein. I mostly like what I've seen from my rookies. There is a lot to like about how the season has been going. You're right about that.
Good, good, good. But we're not here today to talk about Denver. We'll probably focus on some of the other things that have been happening in the league. So obviously last time when we had a conversation with Doug, we had a chat about some of the day 30 trades and the complete and utter chaos that happened with that. But today, let's take a look at some other things that have happened in the league. So we've had three new or returning general managers come back to the CSL, joining with the Atlanta, Chicago, and Indiana. And I thought it'd be quite good today to give them a little bit of an overview of what sort of situation they're going into and what they can expect out of their team and what sort of direction they're heading and what they might necessarily need to do to avoid that direction or to get back into sort of the position they should be. So we start with the Atlanta Hawks, shall we, Miles, and have a little bit of chat about them. So they've obviously had a new general manager join. I think his name on the forum is Flaming Homer, an experienced general manager from a couple of other sim leagues. So certainly no rookie to DDS or to sim leagues in general. So that's always a positive thing to have. But he's taken over a difficult situation in Atlanta, hasn't he, Miles?
Yeah, it's definitely not pretty in Atlanta, and I mean, it looks better today than it looked when he took over because I think the trades he's made already have been good moves for the team.
Yeah, do you want to sort of enlighten everyone on sort of some of the guys that have sort of come into the Hawks and have possibly gone and in terms of how that's adjusted some of their
Yeah,
roster?
absolutely. So you touched on the fact that he's not a rookie general manager, and it definitely has played out so far in the two trades that he's made because I'm sure we can all remember a number of people who have come in the league and within, a week or 2 weeks of them being in the league have made trades that all make us go, this guy has no idea what he's doing. And it's not always necessarily like the person's dumb or they don't know DDS. It's just that every league kind of has the life of its own, and so it's very easy to kind of make a misjudgment early on. But I think Atlanta's made two trades that we all can get behind. They brought in the smaller trade. They brought in Andrew Bynum and Paul Zipser. A couple of guys are they'll be fine. Andrew Bynum is a good placeholder at center. Paul Zipser I had before. He's could be a rotation player, but it's not. They didn't cost themselves anything. And then they got Jamal Murray, who I think all of us think is a worthwhile young project player. And none of us really liked Pirtle when he was drafted. So I think it just worked out to for Atlanta to bring in Murray, Bynum, and Zipser.
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on that. You sort of had a look, and it looks like he's come in and had a clear idea of exactly what he wanted to do to begin with, to try and get something going with the Hawks, franchise that's kind of been in disrepair now, probably. I mean, even with the previous general manager for several seasons now. So we'll see how these moves play out. But certainly in the short term, it makes sense because some of the guys that he's brought in particular Murray, who we've got up on the screen, is a guy who has some potential. He's bounced around a little bit since he was drafted. but certainly there is some upside to him. So why not give him a go if his values was fairly low at the time? So certainly a fairly solid move for them there. I think in terms of going forward, they've obviously got three key young guys now in Winslow, Murray, and Russell. Whether they stay together and whether he sees them as the guys to build around, I don't necessarily know. But Winslow's an interesting one, isn't it, Miles? Because when he came into the league, there was obviously a thought of the fact that he was going to be a really, really good defensive player, but he was going to be completely and utterly atrocious on offense. But this season, he seems to have kind of turned it around. Do you think there's any reason for that at the moment, or do you think it's just because he's on a bad team at the moment and they're not performing very well that it just looks better than it normally is, and we'll expect him to go back to normal? What are your thoughts on Winslow and sort of that three in general? Do you think they're going to develop together? Do you think that's a good situation in Atlanta?
Well, I think the thing that we were all worried about with Winslow was that his because he would also have a high scoring rating in regards to like the rest of his ratings, that he would be the kind of guy who would go out of his way to take more shots than he should be taking, based on kind of what we all expect from a player of his shooting caliber. But he's connecting on over 50% of his shots inside, and if he can get reined in, if Flaming Homer can put in the work and make sure that Justice Winslow's shot selection is key. I mean, a guy like him doesn't need to be a super efficient scorer to be valuable. He just needs to not be a really bad one. So if they can get him even, I mean, he's at 43% right now, or something close to that. If they can get him to like if he was just shooting around 47%, I would be totally fine with him playing, 36 minutes a game, and feel that that's like a good trade-off. Like his defense is worth, I mean, and that's a good shooting percentage. It's not Steph Curry, but it's manageable.
Yeah, I mean, if he shot 47%, I think half the league would want him because he just brings so much else to that position. I mean, you can see it by his stats there. Obviously, he's doing a lot of it at the moment in Atlanta, but we know that he has the ability to defend. We know he has the ability to rebound, block shots, to help guys out, and you know his turnovers are probably an issue, but you kind of always expect that with rookies in DDS. They tend to be quite high in terms of turnovers initially, and that tends to drop off in their third year. So
Well, and
certainly,
for him though, for him, turnovers will always be an issue because he is a guy that is going to rely on getting to the basket. And he is not the kind of person I see being successful at power forward simply because his rebounding ratings are they're okay, but they're nothing special, and he's not big himself. So we're talking about a guy who's going to spend the majority of his offensive game attacking the basket from the perimeter. He's going to turn the ball over. It's just he's going to be one of those guys who will always be over two turnovers a game, no matter what. And that's just one of those things that you have to kind of prepare for and have to accept that the Justice Winslow experience will include two turnovers per game.
yeah, yeah, okay. So in terms of the rest of the Hawks, so the outlook is, I think we probably both agree that it was bleak. It's probably a little bit better now. It's still not
Oh,
going to obviously
absolutely.
be a playoff contender or anywhere near that at the moment. But do you think there's signs that this franchise could face a quick turnaround?
I think no, I wouldn't say quick turnaround just because this is one of those teams that you could trick yourself into thinking it's a quick turnaround and then really screw yourself over. They have their first round picks each of the next 3 years, I believe. Yeah, they have their first round picks moving forward. That's going to be huge. I honestly think that they'll need at least two drafts, or to be able to acquire two like legitimate, top 30 type players in order to be like considered a contender. I think Justice Winslow is going to be the type of player who will, uh, be a mainstay on a contender. And I think that there's a chance that I don't think Russell and Murray will work together, but I think that there's a chance that one of the two of them can be the shooting guard of their next great Atlanta Hawks team. And the reason why I say shooting guard specifically is because Neither one of them are exceptional playmakers, and neither one of them are even above average defenders. And you would have to be like a Derrick Rose level scorer, or even better than that, to be like a playoff successful point guard if you can't play make and you can't defend.
Yeah, I certainly don't see Russell or Murray staying on the same team in the long haul. But I think the value that in terms of he got Murray for, in terms of what he had to give up, I think it was a no-brainer in terms of
Oh,
got to get him
absolutely.
in, see how he does.
Absolutely. And I think
Um,
the beautiful thing about this is that he can kind of put them both in the shooting guard role. And he's got 3 years before, well, 2.5 seasons before they're restricted free agents. This isn't a decision he needs to make this year. This could be something where next year he looks at it and says, you know what? Russell is the more impactful player. Murray's the more impactful player. He's a better scorer. He's a better this, better that. So I'm now, and then that gives him the ability to move the other one for maybe a center. He can move it for a point guard. He can move it. There's, you know what I mean? He has that option, and I think he's got the luxury of time to figure out the right way to approach that.
oh yeah, definitely. And for Murray, I see him as someone that he's going to buy. It's a buy low, sell high kind of situation that he can buy him quite low. Still got years on his current rookie deal. He can develop him. He can get some instructions into him, and then when he's kind of turned it around, looks like he could be a borderline solid minute shooting guard. Then he could trade him for some better fit for this team. So perfect
Exactly,
situation,
exactly.
really.
Yeah, or trade
Um,
him for a draft pick, and then you have
yeah,
multiple picks
yeah,
moving forward.
yeah. Which,
Could be
which
anything like
kind
that.
of leads me on to the next thing, because I think that I can see the Hawks going down a similar sort of fashion to the Heat, possibly if he wants to take that route. In that he could potentially cash in some of the guys that he's got, pick up some picks, and then sort of try and slowly build it back up through the draft, like the Heat have done and continue to do at the moment. So I could certainly see that as one option that the Hawks could take.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's move on to the next team. And as soon as I turn it over, we'll probably know exactly who we're talking about here. So the Chicago Bulls, who obviously won a title 2 seasons ago now, I believe, had Marcos, the general manager at the time, then decided to blow it up a little bit, bring in some young guys, then made a trade for Kevin Durant, and in the sort of the confusion and sort of things that happened there, decided it was time to step down from the league and take a seat back. We've then had two, I think, general managers, correct me if I'm wrong, but two general managers have come in short periods and slowly started to destroy what was once one of the best franchises in the league. They're now back. They've now got their saviour back in Marcos, in a completely different situation to where they were when he was back in as general manager towards the middle of last season. And they're in a bit of a tricky situation now, Miles, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And to be clear about one thing, though, I think this is the path that they were headed down with or without Marcos, because he did cash in on so many high risk, high reward. No, I wouldn't necessarily say short term, but the type of move where if it doesn't pan out, it's going to get ugly quickly. And I think Ty Lawson getting hurt is one of those things where that blew up in the face of the Bulls, and I think this is where they would be. I mean, maybe not like 5-24, but they'd be down at the bottom of the Central, regardless of who is it if Marcos had stayed in charge the whole time. So first of all, I want to say welcome back, Marcos. We're glad to have you back. Um, and yeah, the Bulls have. I would be very surprised if any of the players on their roster are still on their roster in 2 seasons.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, it's great to have Marcus back because he was a real positive influence in the league whilst he was here, clearly. But just there's one guy I think will still be on the roster unless he gets tremendous value for him. Bryce Johnson is one that I can see sticking around because he brings a lot to the game, and he doesn't necessarily need to start to be impactful. And he's just pull up his details here, but I believe he's on a pretty good contract. Yeah, so he's still a restricted free agent next year. So unless someone absolutely pays him, I can see him going back to Chicago. I just before we sort of talk about the roster and the players, I think it's probably worth just saying that they do have their own pick this year, and they do have the Minnesota pick and the Lakers pick next year. And obviously, we know the Lakers are without a general manager at the moment, with Tim leaving the league. But so they do have some assets to use, and it's going to be a bit of a combination, isn't it, Miles, of him using those and the players that he's got to try and turn this thing around, to get the Chicago back into the playoff hunt in the East.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see exactly what happens after Marcos is done training because obviously he's willing to trade like everyone on the roster pretty much. I'm curious to see if Batum or Smith get traded because they're both expiring contracts, and I think Marcos wants to try to go into this offseason with like as few players on the roster as possible so that he can, kind of redo everything the way he wants to. But they both also have value as far as being players that can play on good teams. Um, so whether he trades them and makes sure that he only gets expiring contracts back, or if he trades them and takes on some salary, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there. And what I mean, this is a roster that, like I said, could look entirely different, tomorrow. So we'll just have to wait and see what he does.
Yeah, and he's made, I think, one trade possibly now, in bringing in Cantor and Holiday. I think they're both expiring, weren't they?
I think Cantor is on a longer term contract than that, but I don't know for a fact.
Check. Oh, hold on. Quick look.
Yeah, Cantor
Okay,
is
so
on.
he's on a longer deal. Yeah.
So like I said, I didn't say he wants to come into this year with zero people on the books for the next few years, but it's definitely gonna be as few players as possible, I think. Although that does change things because if he's willing to trade, Lawson and take back someone with as long a contract as Cantor, might be the place to do the same with Batum and Smith. I'm not entirely positive what it is that Marcos is exactly trying to do.
No, I don't think we necessarily know yet because he's only been back a week probably now, so he's probably still formulating his plans for how he wants his team to look. But certainly going to
Yeah,
be a
and
good
actually,
challenge
can
for
we
him.
can we just point out one thing on this Timberwolves Bulls trade? Like, obviously, everyone brought up the whole like it doesn't make any sense, Roxy's explanation because Lawson's still going to be missing another 3 months, which puts him, back for maybe 15 regular season games, yada yada yada. But like Enes Kanter's contract might be one of the worst in the league. Lawson is being paid a lot, but his contract expires next year, whereas Cantor's expires in 4 years. And Justin Holiday is a good player, but still, I mean, he didn't give up any, young prospects. He didn't give up any picks. Like this was a salary dump for Roxy. I mean, if Roxy had explained this contract or this trade was a salary dump, I don't think we'd have an issue with it. The only thing that anyone brought up was that it just didn't make sense based on Roxy's explanation. I don't think this trade's a bad trade for the Timberwolves if you look at it through that perspective.
No, I agree. I don't think it's a bad trade for the Timberwolves. I think the whole concept of it kind of got blown a little bit out of the water in the trade discussion that followed it. But I agree. The contracts. I thought Cantor was expiring, but I agree that looking at the contract now, that's probably one angle to it. You've got to remember. I don't think the Wolves have their first round pick next year either, do they?
I don't think they had their first round pick ever.
Ever. So I think in terms of that move, I mean, he may have tried to justify it as looking at this season, but next season, he's going to get Lawson back, who will still be a solid point guard. He may have a ratings drop because of age and the injury, but he'll still be solid, and that's a position where they needed someone. So perhaps he's thinking about not just this season but next season as well. I don't know exactly, but yeah, certainly the contract aspect of it was a key thing, from your point there as well. So the
Yeah,
final
yeah, he
team,
doesn't. Mm.
yeah, so the final team that has had a new general manager come in is the Indiana Pacers, a team that probably, I think it's fair to say, is stagnated now. They had obviously gone for a full rebuild. They brought in a lot of really, really talented players in the draft. And I think for the past sort of few seasons, guys have sort of been saying this is the year that the Pacers make the next step. This is the year they make the next step. They've got all the talent now. And it's never quite been there, has it, Miles?
Well, I think it hasn't quite been there because they have a general manager who kind of comes and goes in terms of, or I should say, they had a general manager. He wasn't always around all the time, and their record reflects that this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly one of the reasons. And I think it's fair to say that the Pacers have got a general manager who's an experienced general manager again, similar to Atlanta. He's been around the leagues and he's been successful in leagues before, certainly, and he's certainly been an improvement, in terms of, hopefully in terms of activity, in terms of his knowledge of what he can bring to the Pacers franchise.
I think this is a team that can still make the playoffs in the East. Even sitting at 8-16 right now, you're looking at it, and we got trying to do some quick math in my head here, but I'm pretty sure that the eighth seed is like sitting at around 500 or worse.
Yeah, it's just below 500. I think it's the Magic, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, the
12
Magic
and
at 12
15.
and 15. I think that the Pacers could easily challenge for a low seed in the playoffs and with the talent that they have, and all it takes is a general manager who can actually put a real rotation in place. And I think that they have they have so many talented players. It's just um, it honestly just comes down to actually putting them, because I'm pretty sure Damian Inglis was a starter last year. I don't think he was coming off the bench. He's one of their better players as far as like being a part of a team. This is a team that really could be doing so much better, and I think they will be, especially because they don't have their own pick this year.
Yeah, so it's a team that needs just a little bit of probably love and attention, doesn't it, in terms of getting the rotation right, getting the strategy right, and then probably just letting it go because the talent is certainly there at the moment. Um, it'd be interesting to see what Heatgrad does because I've been with him in other leagues before and I've seen him do some real miraculous things and really take a franchise on and go to the next level with them. And I've seen other times where he's come in and not really kind of grasped the situation and then sort of faded in and out, similar to the previous Pacers general manager. So hopefully he does the first thing and he comes in and really takes the Pacers into be a bit of a dominant force in the East because the potential's certainly there with them. In terms of trading activity, I know he sort of put a block out there, but I don't know about you, Miles, but I don't think they necessarily need to make a move at the moment.
I don't think they need to, but I think they will because every general manager who comes in, they want to feel like there's some part of them that's in the team. There's one thing I think that the Pacers suffer from that I think a lot of good teams out there suffer from. You look up and down the roster, especially like all just like go position by position, and you don't really sit there and go, oh man, like they really need a better. They don't. There's no position where you're like, oh man, like that has to be improved. Like their power forward or their center or their shooting guard, whatever. But they also don't have the player that puts them over the top at any of those positions either. George Sapala is a really good point guard, but he's not a superstar. Carl Anthony Towns will be a superstar, but he's not there today. They or maybe he'll be a superstar. I'm not entirely positive. Can't speak to that, but it's just one of those things where it's like they may end up getting trapped in that. You know, we don't need to upgrade anywhere, but we need to upgrade somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I know completely what you mean. They've got real solid depth, and the challenge that they face now is, do they basically essentially move some of that depth to try and acquire that star to get them over the top, or do they just go, no, we're happy with the depth we've got, we'll continue to plug away, and we'll just hope and wait until hopefully Carl Anthony Towns develops into a superstar? I think that's the question that they've got to try and answer. I don't necessarily think it needs to be this season. Similar in like Atlanta, the situation there, I don't think that they need to necessarily do any drastic moves this year. They can see how it plays out, see what options they have in the off season, and then possibly go from there.
Yeah, I think that Indiana should be, because they don't have their own pick. I think Indiana should be doing everything they can to win games, and by that I mean they shouldn't, like, high grade should not be afraid to make changes to the rotation that that we wouldn't expect to work. Like, maybe try playing Draymond Green at center, or maybe try playing Mario. No, his ratings suck, but you know what I mean. Like playing like
Yeah,
playing guys
yeah, yeah.
out of the typical, or maybe playing Draymond Green at point guard. Like play guys in places you wouldn't expect, because that
Mhm.
this is the season to find out that sort of thing.
Yeah, to find out exactly what depth you can sacrifice, because you know guys can step up and play those positions.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
And like Carl Anthony Towns, I feel like should be scoring more than 13 points a game in his second season. Is he actually going to be better as a scorer at power forward, or is he better as a scorer at center? Because some players, it does matter where they play in terms of how they score. So it's these things that I think that high grade should find out this season, so that he can make those moves. Because what if, I mean, if Draymond Green is like excellent as a center, then that makes like Zhu Qi tradable. If Draymond Green is excellent at point guard, that makes George DePaul tradable. If George DePaul is excellent at shooting guard, that makes his zone. You get what I'm saying? Like they
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
find that answer.
yeah. Completely agree. Good. So that's sort of the two of sorry three new general managers, one former one, two new ones that have joined.
High grade
Um,
high grade is a former CSL GM.
oh, was he? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he no, it was I mean, CSL dates back all the way to summer of 2013, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And this is the third website that the CSL has been on. So I think High Grade was around for like a lot more of the early stuff than I don't remember how long he lasted into this website. But he was originally he was around a long time ago.
Okay. So a bit of a comeback for him then, hopefully.
Yeah, it might be like, it might be like 3 years since he was in CSL. Someone would look back at his member activity to find that out. Actually, I will do that right
Yeah.
now because I know he's been around before.
So,
Anyway, we can
sort
we can move
of
on, but I'm just
yeah.
gonna look this.
Before we move on, one last question: of the three that have three guys that have come in, who has the best situation? Who has the worst? It's probably obvious, but let's just throw that out there.
Yeah, well, okay. So best situation is High Grade with Indiana. Um, I like their team. I like what they've got. I think that there's a real um, chance for him to make the playoffs this year, and potentially even win a first round matchup. I just think they have that kind of talent. Speaking of High Grade, he was the Clippers general manager until late 2014. So that's uh, his uh, history with the league. Um, and then as for the worst situation, um, honestly, for me, I don't think that it's really easy to make the distinction between Atlanta and Chicago. Chicago does have two, uh, you know, decent to nice looking picks in the Minnesota and the um, Lakers pick, but they don't have Justice Winslow. They don't have any guy like that who you really see as like a mainstay on the roster moving forward. Their best young guy might be Ante Zizic, and he doesn't look anything like that special. Bryce Johnson's all right, but I definitely wouldn't put any guy that they have in the class of Justice Winslow, or even D'Angelo Russell for that matter. So I'll take the Hawks. Sorry, I'll take the Bulls as being in the worst position because I like the Hawks building blocks better already, and it's not like they're missing any picks. But that my answer about that also could change depending on what the league determines as fair value for guys like Josh Smith and Nicholas Batum.
Okay, cool. So before we sort of pulled this episode together, Miles, I sort of threw a question at you that we're going to discuss in this second half of the cast, and I also threw it out to the league, to the general managers to see what their view is. And I just posed the question because we always talk about who is the best player in the league, who is the worst player in the league, but we've never asked ourselves, I don't think, who is the most average player in the CSL. And in terms of the most average player, it's not the most average player across every single player and in every single roster. It's in terms of who is the most average player, who gets starters level minutes, who's actually playing night in, night out to a reasonable level. And so before I get what your opinion is, Miles, I've listed down all of the players that the league's general managers have thrown out there in the chat or on the forum, and just going to do a bit of a quick fire with you. Whether you think yes, they should be included in discussion, no, get out of here, shouldn't be included at all. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. So first one we got up here. Some of these may just be completely ludicrous because guys are having a bit of fun with this. But first one we got is Serge Ibaka.
I think I'm inclined to say no, because I think he's more specialized, but and he used to be certainly not anywhere close to this discussion. But I think based on the way he's playing this year, it's kind of close. I'll go with he deserves to be in the discussion.
Okay, so he deserves to be in. Sam Decker,
Yeah, absolutely.
Gordon Hayward.
Where is he now?
He's currently with me in Portland.
Oh, okay, I didn't know he was still there.
Let me pull up his stats quickly for you.
No,
I think
yeah, you can pull
he's
it up on
fairly
there.
across the board.
I would say yes. I thought he scored more than that, but it may be uh because
His
of the
scoring was
new.
high, a lot higher than last year. It was about 20, nearly 20 points a game, but it's dropped off a lot this year.
Okay,
Um,
my
okay,
you're also
so
playing a
far
lot
we're three
less.
and
Yeah,
three.
yeah,
Tyrone Wallace.
Sorry, who was that?
Tyrone Wallace.
Yes, I would say he deserves to be in the discussion.
Jeff Teague.
Yeah, for a point guard. Yeah, I think so.
James Young.
Yeah, definitely.
Thad Young.
Also, definitely. Well, he might be on like the
Dwight.
low end. Like I would
Okay.
hold on. Let me look at um just so that you don't have to pull it up for everyone. He's currently averaging 14 points, 7 rebounds. No, he's doing better than I thought he would be doing. Yeah, he deserves to be in that discussion.
Okay. Dwight Howard.
I don't think so. I think he's still better than that.
Ennis Cantor.
Yeah.
Brooke Lopez.
I still think he's just been getting a raw deal, both in Orlando and Miami. His production will say that yes, he's average, but I don't think so. Also, I just looked at Dwight Howard, and boy, that guy has fallen off a map as well. So yes, Dwight Howard deserves to be in the average player discussion. Good lord.
So far we've only knocked one guy off, and that's Thad Young. So this is going well so far. Nerlens Noel.
See, the thing that we also have to remember is that it's not just the counting stats production, but also like his stats. Oh well, his defense really good. I will say no. Nerlens Noel is not in this discussion. His defense is too
Okay.
good.
Alex Len.
Yes.
Travis Trice.
Uh, Not enough sample size. I'm not going to include any rookies in this.
Okay, good point. Fukan Edwin.
Yeah, I think so.
DeMar DeRozan.
Definitely.
DeMar Carroll.
No. No, I don't. The thing with the guys like DeMar Carroll, and I kind of touched on this in the Facebook chat, is that you have your guys who are more specialized, like who fill like a very specific role, and those guys are going to have wildly varying values among different teams. And so I
Yeah,
think
yeah, I completely agree. I don't think we can consider them as average players because they have a specialism in something. An
exactly.
average
So
player would
noted
be average
DeMarco.
across the board at everything.
Yeah, or at least in a lot of things. It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
everything, but like it's got to be a kind of guy who can play multiple roles.
basically, we need a guy who's going to go
Average.
in there and make average impact, isn't it? Really, can do a
Exactly.
bit of everything, but nothing great and nothing bad. Okay, and the
Yeah.
last one that was thrown out there was Aaron Gordon.
No. No, that was Andrew down there in Oklahoma City just trying to be a troll. No, Aaron Gordon is not an average player.
Okay, so we've got quite a few guys on here. I'm going to go back up to the top of the list, and we'll bring them up on screen, and we're going to need to start eliminating some of these guys. But probably before I do that, is there anyone on your list that I haven't named who you want to include on here?
Um, Not really, just because like the way I define average player is just it's very broad, and so we could be sitting here all day like talking about so many different players. Um, I do want to point out one thing that for me, like average player is very much like a vibe thing. Like if I have a guy in my rotation and I'm kind of like, yeah, he's fine there. I could keep him there. But then I also think about it, I go, I could also improve there. I could do better. He could sit on my bench. Like that to me is like the kind of guy who I think of when I think average player. Like you're happy to have him, you'd be fine to not have him. Just kind of he just kind of exists. And I think all of us have players like that on our team. I would be surprised if any team out there did not have a player that they felt that way about.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. So I'm going to throw a couple names out here. Three names. Some of them may be controversial. So first one is Nick Johnson.
Yeah, Nick Johnson to me is I think he's a little bit better, and I think it's one of those things where like you look at his counting stats and you know it's very much like he probably averages production, but his defense is phenomenal. And he is a better I think a better player than he has offensively than he's played for in Toronto. So I'm gonna say Nick Johnson's on the high end of that and is kind of in the average player discussion because of Toronto. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like if he was on my team,
Yeah,
no one would be talking about him being average because he'd be looking a lot better.
yeah, it's because the team's on, of course it is. But another one, Jimmy Butler.
I think Jimmy Butler is like the definition of like the like average good player. You know, like he's not the average player, but he's the average good player. Does that make sense? Am I rambling?
No, it makes sense. We'll leave him on there. We're going to have to start eliminating this list in a bit, but we'll leave him on there for now. And then the final one that I've got on here is Lance Stevenson.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Lance Stevenson is a legend. Just in case anyone didn't notice, Lance Stevenson's averaging 18 points a game in 26 minutes. Can we just? Why does everyone want to bring Lance Stevenson down? Let Lance be Lance. Lance make you dance.
So
18 points.
I think that if you look at Lance Stevenson, minus this year, if you look at his numbers, which are across the board generally, he's a 46% shooter, more or less, 15 points per game, and he's steals one steal, couple of rebounds. That to me is the definition of an average player who needs to be considered.
Lance Stevenson was average. And then he lived in Colorado for a full year, and Colorado has provided him with the type of greenery that he needs to succeed. If you catch my drift, and I think you'll find that he's on some type of play performance enhancing drug that is allowing him to fulfill his maximum potential. So Portland, you're in one of those states. Californians, you guys need to be trading for Lance Stevenson. He'll be great for you.
Okay then. So I'll make a deal with you. We'll take Lance Stevenson off. We take Gordon Hayward off because he was a similar stat line to Lance Stevenson last year.
Gordon Hayward is my boy from the NLL, so I will gladly do that. Except I don't want to tarnish my NLL memory of Gordon Hayward. So,
Good
and also
stuff.
I
We
don't
don't do
make trades
backroom
on
deals in
puck.
this cast, but we did then.
Yeah. All right, so let's eliminate some of these guys from the average player,
Right.
and
Okay.
yeah, let's find the most average player.
Okay. So I'll go down the list again. I'll bring them up quickly, and we'll do a quick 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, no, needs to be considered because now we've gone through the full list. So the first one was Serge Ibaka.
My initial gut reaction was no. So we'll take Serge Ibaka off because I think 2.6 blocks per game is worthy of him being considered not average.
Exactly. I think it's fair to consider him a specialist now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next.
Sam Decker.
Sam Decker. He is with Oklahoma City now. Yes, Sam Decker he can stay in the average discussion. I think he won't make it to the end, but he can stay there for now.
Okay. Tyrone Wallace.
I'm gonna take him out because the playmaking that he has from a forward position is not your average type of playmaker. So he gets to be knocked out of this discussion.
Okay. Jeff Teague. Where is
Oh,
Jeff
see,
Teague
this is
now? I
one
don't
of
even know
those
where
where
he
I think
is.
he's in Philadelphia. I think this
Philadelphia.
is one of those where position matters because I think Teague is the average point guard, but I don't necessarily think Teague is the most average player. So we can knock Teague out of the conversation with the caveat that we all agree Jeff Teague is the average point guard.
Yeah, I'll go with that. We'll just agree he's the average point guard and we won't include any other point guards.
Yeah.
Yep. Lovely. James Young.
Oklahoma City. Um, I'm gonna say no to James Young because although he is an average scorer and kind of average a lot of other things, he definitely is more of a scorer than anything else. Like he's not like an average, rebounder or an average defender. So I think you can take him out.
Okay. We had Thaddeus Young, but I'm guessing we can eliminate him.
Yeah, we can take Thad Young out.
Okay. Ennis Cantor.
Oh, Ennis Cantor. We can leave him. I think Ennis Cantor is the center version of Jeff Teague. I don't think he's the most average player. I think he is the most average center.
Okay. So with that in mind, Alex Len.
Where's Alex Len now? Is he on the Lakers?
Lakers, yeah.
You know
So I don't
what?
think so. I don't think he's average
Yeah, I don't
enough.
think he's good enough. I don't think he's good enough to be an average player. I think he's below average.
Okay. Fukan Edwin.
His numbers
Again, I
this year
think
are
same
pretty
situation
depressed,
there. He's not average enough.
but I think he used to be, but I think this year it's just not there for whatever reason. So we can take him off because he's not there this year. But I
We'll
think in
take him
previous
off
years
with
he
an
might have won
agreement.
this award.
We'll take him off with an agreement to review him next year or later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like at the end of the
next one,
season. Keep him like in the pool of players to evaluate at the end of the season.
yeah, he'll be on a maybe for the end of the season for our average player award. I feel we should do one. Um,
We absolutely are going to do one now. I like this.
we need to get sponsored by someone. What's something that's really average? If anyone knows anything
Uh
that's really average that you just think of as an everyday item and you just don't think of it, please let us know because we'll
yeah,
sponsor
please
it by it.
please comment your thoughts on who our sponsor should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay,
next one we've got is
who's
DeMar
next?
DeRozan.
I'm gonna go no, just because he's like again, it's like too much of one thing, which is scoring. I don't think that he does the other things well enough to warrant average there.
Yeah, and I think he's a fairly solid scorer, so we'll take him off. So that leaves us with final two that we had on here. So Jimmy Butler.
Let's leave him in. Because I think you before the show you told me like an average stat line for
I
all the
did,
players
yeah.
playing above 25 minutes.
We
And
won't
I'm
reveal
pretty
that
sure,
yet.
yeah, I won't say it, but I'm pretty sure Butler was pretty close to that. So,
Okay.
uh, I'm gonna say yes for Butler.
Okay. And Nick Johnson.
I think I talked about Nick Johnson already. I think I said he was a little bit on the. I think he's too. I think he's the high end, so we can take him out as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had him still on here, but his defense is too good to be average.
Hmm.
Okay. So that leaves us with uh, Sam Decker, Ennis Cantor, and Jimmy Butler.
I think at this point we all know who we're picturing in our mind as the average player, not just you and me, but all the listeners. And
Mhm.
when you think average player, you just think Sam Decker. I mean, everything, even down to his build. I mean, he's what is he? He's like six. He's 6'9", 210 pounds. So he's not like super tall, but he's taller than the tiny guys, and he's not built, but he's not skinny. And he can kind of do. I mean, look at like even his ratings are like across the board average. I mean, he's like low 60s, high 50s, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah,
Except
I think
for
that's a fair point.
I think I think Sam Decker is who we all kind of thought of in our mind as when we said average player.
Yeah, I think in terms of the three that are left, I think we've mentioned Ennis Cantor as the average centre.
Yeah,
Jimmy Butler, the average good player, for want of a better word. But they both bring something else. But when you think about an average player, you want someone who is just, like you said, borderline average ratings, borderline average high average weight, and then average stats.
Sam Sam Decker
Sam
is the
Decker.
dude that you just leave in your lineup because you're kind of like, I don't. I mean, sure, that's fine. Sam Decker, yeah, he can play. You know, Jimmy Butler, like at least he plays defense. Ennis Cantor, he's a good interior scorer. Sam Decker, dude, that dude, yeah, he needs to play small forward. Great. He needs to play power forward. Fine, we're fine.
He's the sort of guy you can throw into those two positions, and you know you're not going to lose much.
Yeah,
I think it's fair to
he's
say.
not gonna lose you any games. He's not gonna win you any games.
He's just going to be there.
He's just going to be there. He'll make some shots. Like it's just that's Sam Decker. Like that's who he is. And I think that to me is the epitome of the average player.
Okay, I think I agree with you. So Sam Decker is officially, at the moment, before we do the end of season awards, the preliminary average player in the CSL.
And also, I would like to point out that there's nothing statistical about this. And so
Just
this could
feeling.
change when if we exactly this is based on feeling. If we do like if we crunch the numbers of all the players who play like I don't know, at least 10 minutes a game, 12 minutes a game, something like that, we could find the most average stat line, and maybe it's not Sim Decker. Maybe it's someone a little better, someone a little worse. But right now, just based on I think how we all feel
He's also
when we
playing
started this
average.
conversation, say that again.
Also playing average minutes,
Yeah, I think when we
like
started this
middle minutes.
conversation, we said most average player, all of you, every one of you listening, you don't have to admit this, but we all know in your head, you saw Sam Decker.
It's yeah, and it's quite an average. Like yeah, I don't know what more to say really. I mean, I think looking at his stats here and looking at everything, it's average, isn't it? There's nothing
Yeah,
there that makes you think, oh, he's
the only thing there that I would say is not average is his blocks. He's a below average blocker,
yeah,
and he's probably a little on the below average side on assists, but like I mean, even that was at 1.8 at one point in his career. I mean, this dude, he just kind of does a little bit of everything.
yeah. I think that's fair to say. He does a little bit of everything, and he does it all to adequate standard.
Challenge to the next draft team. Create a player whose ratings are solely between 55 and 65 on every
Just so we
single
can have a
category.
standpoint, and And whoever team, whatever franchise he goes to, they have to play him 24 minutes a game
24
because we
minutes
need
a game.
to we need to know exactly what the average stat line is.
You can probably bump discipline and court intelligence up to like the low 70s. I think that's more in line with like
Yeah,
what we
yeah,
consider average there. And I think obviously his shooting ratings shouldn't be 55 to 65 because that guy would be a god. But other than that, from scoring all the way to hold on, let me look at the way the ratings are set up. From scoring to draw foul. No, maybe scoring to steal. 55 and 65. Let's see what happens.
yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. No, I mean, so I think that's a good way to end this episode. Really, we've decided
Absolutely.
who the CSL's most average player is so far, and we think it's Sam Decker. And we will come
And I would
back at the end
also
of the
I would
season.
absolutely I would like everyone to this goes beyond CSL. Go think about your life and think about what the average thing in your life is. I think we should all take this with us, you know? It's an important type of discussion. I'm totally kidding. Chris, thank you so much
Great,
for having me on. This is a
no
blast. I like
problem.
we should do more of these kind of like out there, a little bit weird, a little bit not super relevant to like running a team, but this is the fun side of it all. I think we
Yeah,
need to
I
do
think
more
I
of
think
that.
we need to throw it out there. If someone has a random question that they want answered in the CSL that has no meaning, then we are the guys to try and answer it.
Please submit those. PM them to myself and Chris. By the way, I'm using the search feature in DDS real quick just to see if there's anyone who has between 50 and 65 in all categories, and that is David Ware. We already know what this guy looks like. It is David Ware. David Ware, you are officially the most average ratings player in the league, just on ratings.
Brilliant, brilliant.
All right, Chris.
Thanks for being
Thank you
involved.
so
It was
much for
great.
having me on, man.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.